Hello, Bangkok. So I am excited to be in Bangkok, but I'm even more pleased to be here with all of you and spend the next few days talking payment security. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to be joined by panelists that I've invited to participate in the next conversation. These panelists represent unique voices across the payment industry. Here on stage with me will be representatives from a global technology company providing cybersecurity services in payments and a number of other industries, and who also is one of our principal participating organizations and holds a seat on our board of advisors. We'll have a PCI qualified security assessor and a participant in our global executive assessor roundtable group. We'll have a representative from the largest bank in India and a participant in our brand new regional engagement board for India and South Asia that Gina mentioned earlier. We'll have a representative from a global technology leader in services that empower individuals, communities, businesses, and society. They offer services in e-commerce, fintech, digital content, and communications to over 2 billion members. They are also another representative on our board of advisors. That is the snapshot of who's going to join me. So in order to get started with the conversation, please help me welcome them to stage. Thank you all for joining me. I gave a quick snapshot about what your organizations represent across the payments industry, but I'd like to take a moment and have each of you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about the scope of responsibilities you have within your organization. So let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks everyone. So essentially, I represent HDFC Bank, one of the largest private sector banks in India. So my role is about heading the PCI and the ISO 27001 compliance within the bank. So of course, the scope includes both the bank as acquirer and issuer, and of course, our merchants and service providers, and ensuring that for all relevant PCI standards, DSS, PIN, P2P, SSF, etc., for our organization, for our applications, we are compliant, and so do for the merchants and the service providers. Yeah,
Thank you. Edward.
Yeah, my name is Edward. I come from Rakuten Group, based in Japan. My responsibility is to protect the credit card data of our customer, which subscribe to our services. My team is to maintain the compliance of PCI SSC, and also I serve as a board advisor of the council. Yeah, thank you to have me. Thank you.
Great, we're glad to have you here. Deepak.
Hi, Rihanna. Thanks. Thanks to the council for putting this up. I'm Deepak. I happen to be the co-founder and CEO of Crossbow. We are a QSA company. We also happen to represent the council as part of GEAR. So happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Garen. I represent Thales. Thales is the leading cybersecurity company for data and application protection according to PCI standards. I'm based in Singapore, taking care of the Southeast Asia business. Nice to meet everyone down here.
Yes. Well, thank you all for joining me. We're going to jump right in now. So I'm going to start with my first question to Garen.
Yeah.
So as a large global security services organization, you work in the payment space, but also across many other industries, and that's a big responsibility. Your organization has chosen to take on even more activities by joining PCI SSC as a principal member, our highest level of membership, and you serve on PCI's board of advisors. So can you share with the audience about why your organization has chosen to participate at such a high level, and what that does, what value that provides, not just to your organizations, but also to your downstream customers?
Thanks, Diana. So Thales is part of PCI as a participating organization, PO, since 2008, right? And we have deepened our responsibility and commitment to the payment industry this year by being the principal PO, right? In addition, Thales has actually acquired Imperva, who is also a cybersecurity company, who is also a member since 2007. right? So with this whole entire organization, right, we actually want to help shape the cybersecurity standards, right, for the PCI community and payments systems worldwide. And there is 3 ways that we actually try to approach this whole thing, right? So firstly, it's about the influence and insights, right? So there's a lot of decision makers down here, and then PCI auditors down here as well. So being on the board of advisors allow us to have direct inputs, right, into the evolution of critical specifications for the payment industry, right, which is important. Secondly, proactive risk management. I think this is very important because of the threats, evolving threats, right, around quantum, around AI, right? So a lot of us down here is faced with a lot of different challenges to keep up with the security and standards, right? So by being a principal PO, we can stay ahead of the new threats, right? And then to listen to all of you feedbacks and then have our products and solutions evolve around it. And it is very important to always be ahead of the curve. Why? So we are able to, at Thales, we actually invest very heavily in R&D, right? Hence, we have the next new generation emerging technologies such as AI firewalls, quantum-ready HSMs technologies that you are all using for Thales' solution right now, right? So, and thirdly, which is also very important, is the industrial collaboration. To have this big responsibility, we cannot do it alone, right? We need collaboration between all of us down here, right, so that we can stay ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, and we certainly appreciate the input and the value that your organization brings to us through that collaboration. My next question will be to you, Deepak. As a qualified security assessor, you have a vital relationship with PCI SSC, but also with your customers. So many of them may actually even be in this room. And I'd like if you could share something with the audience about the GEAR, the Global Executive Assessor Roundtable Group, and the value that participation provides to PCI and the broader community. It's possible that many of the people in the room aren't familiar with this group.
Yeah. There are about 330 odd QSA companies in the world. So GEAR is basically a representation of, I want to say, between 10 and 12% of the entire group of assessors. So really, what we want to say is, it's a closed room, and whatever happens there is what happens. But most of the times, we end up discussing about how to make a rock. It's a very complex document. It runs into hundreds of pages, and that's one of the most difficult things that we do as a QSA, right? So, and the council is going to be doing a QA of this entire document, look at every nook and cranny, and tell us, hey, where is the evidence for this particular point? And we are subject to AQMs ourselves. But that's just one part of the story. The real reason why we do that, there are a lot of people here from the council as well, Andrew, and so we talk about how this entire process of doing the assessments can improve, the way that the reporting techniques can become a lot more specific so that the standardization is maintained across different QSAs. That's one part of the whole day that we spend in a typical GEAR meeting. But one of the things that it has done is it has helped us build standards for more advanced technologies. As it keeps emerging from different parts of the world, you have QR payments, you have MPOC devices, SPOC devices. A lot of these new standards that a lot of you might be seeing builds on top of a lot of comments that comes out of the GEAR. Right, so we represent as a QSA from our region or some of our customers or maybe other QSAs who are interacting with us. We represent all of these entities with the leadership within the PCI. We talk about what kind of new standards may be required because somebody comes up with payments that you can make a payment with just a tone. Maybe there's a small piece of music playing on your phone and you could make a payment using that. Now, why would that be required is because there are different accessibility requirements in different parts of the world. This enables a lot more people to be involved in the ecosystem and still keep it secure. So when a new technology like this comes up, we represent a lot of these technologies where we do not have already a very clear aspect of how the standards will be applicable. So this is the second part. The third part I want to say is the onset of 4.0, where we had targeted risk analysis for different requirements. That happens to be an amazing feature, though it was there as part of requirement 12.2 until then. With TRA coming in for each requirement, we are able to identify which risk is acceptable and which is not, because different organizations have different methods to meet with PCI compliance. The inclusion of TRA has made the entire standard a lot more adaptable to different organizations, different scales. That's another thing that we do. And I think most importantly, it revolves around the maintenance of the primary objectives of the mothership, which is the DSS. Make sure those requirements are still relevant with changing technology, with changing adoption of the standards, how different regulators want to adopt them across different parts of the world. So these are directly taken. We have an opportunity to present this to a lot of architects of the standards, the council, the payment brands. So that puts us in a very important role when we have to discuss these critical things. So that's really what we do in Gear.
Yes, thank you. I mean, and our relationships with all of our qualified security assessors are at the core of what we do, and help maintain the value of PCI and the credibility of the standards and how the validation exercises work. So my next question will be to you, Nikhil. The organization you represent is the largest bank in India. Your organization was also recently selected to participate in our brand new Regional Engagement Board for India and South Asia. We'll have a first meeting in December. We're excited about that. Can you share with the audience why your organization felt that it was important to join this new stakeholder engagement group?
Absolutely, thanks. So the idea was that being a largest private sector bank in India, we have a very hybrid and a complex infrastructure, like a lot of different operating systems, customized operating systems, a lot of courts application, etc. So we have our own journey of challenges, opportunities that we encountered during compliances to various PCI programs, PCI SSC, PCI PIN, etc. So not only we wanted to look up to others in the same field or fraternity to see how they overcome such challenges, but also we wanted to share our own experience that might help others to sort of grow or overcome their own set of challenges which might be similar in nature. So we all are saying that it's more like collaboration to overcome problems, to share the responses that we had overcome with these challenges, and ensure that we all are growing, and one step ahead of the adversaries that are there in the market, so that we can grow together and learn from each other. That's the whole point. That's the reason we wanted to be part of these boards. Yeah.
And I think that you hit on the collaboration and the information sharing. I think that's why many of us are here today. Right. We all want to participate in the sessions, hear from the speakers, but having the ability to have those conversations with your cohorts, your colleagues, that makes all the difference. I think we saw a bit of that in the workshops this morning. So really appreciate you weighing in on that. So my next question will be for you, Edward. Your organization operates an online marketplace and has for a very long time. In fact, I think it even predates PCI. So share with us why your organization with PCI remains so important. You're also a member of our board of advisors. Even as the core standards like PCI DSS are mature and well known, what continues to bring you to the table here with PCI?
Sure. I think it's back to 4 or 5 years ago, I firstly became a PCI DSS board advisor. At that time, I think we benefit a lot, and during that period, especially we are discussing about the draft, of the PCI DSS 4.0. Of course, I cannot deny that that is the benefit or privilege for the board advisor or POs to early expose to the draft of and enable us to have a more quicker or early deployment of the new standard, be ready for that much earlier. So I can make an advertisement for the council that hope every company can join as a PO.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even beg you to say that, so
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So the other hand, it's I think it's as you said, it's given that the standard already is stable. So what kind of value this kind of engagement still can bring to us? I think it's I would say it's the PCI DSS standard is very different standard according to me. So sometimes the companies asked, okay, you have to do this compliance from nowhere, So from you even have no chance to talk about that and discuss about that, right? But PCI DSS is totally different. So PCI DSS is something made by the community, and of course managed by the council, but made by the community, and community contribute a lot to this kind of standard. So this make us feel that this is not something we requested, but we made by ourselves. We try to do alignment to make sure our data is secure and then we can make sure this industry have a better future, right? So this is kind of a different standard.
Yes.
PCI DSS.
Yes.
So I think it's why we try to continually engage with the council, because I think it's from the perspective of region or industry perspective, there must have some people stand up to speak for that industry or that region, right? So when I just became the board advisor this is currently my third term already. But when I first joined the board advisor, there is only 2 people from Asia. Yeah, for that part, I tried to when I received the interview from the council, that I speak out that if you consider about the innovation, it's coming more and more from the East Asia, Southeast Asia, or West Asia. So I think it's if you consider about the size of the economy. So America, at that time, China don't have any representative in that board, and Japan is the third. They only have 1 people. So I think we have to. So as a large company in Japan, we have to stand up for the region and for the industry to let.
And that's an important point.
Yeah.
The fact that your organization doesn't just represent your interest, but the interest of your region, the interest of your industry segment, and I think that's really important. So next, I'm going to jump to something kind of a follow-up or lead-in from Gina's panel. The previous panelists gave us insight into how executives view the critical role of security and how important internal collaboration is to ensure security is top of mind, all the way from the product engineers, building the products and services, all the way to the boardroom. So can you share, and this is for any or all of you, can you share some of the things that you do within your organizations to ensure that your executive teams stay connected to the importance of not just your security work, but your relationship with PCI? Garen, we'll start.
Yeah, because you talk about security, right? Yeah, so being a cybersecurity company, Thales, we try to map our solution to PCI DSS 4.0, right? So that it is easier for customers to adapt or adopt the solution to stay compliant, to stay secure, right? So we help customers to comply with most of the PCI DSS 4.0 requirement, right? So that's how we do on the security front at Thales.
Yeah. Any of you want to add
So
to
I
that?
think in addition to what Garen just mentioned, so we ensure that the work that we are doing on ground in terms of governance, compliance, implementation, audits are being periodically communicated to our top management with the challenges and with any good things that we have done. We highlight it to them. And also as a part of our banking fraternity, we have our own connect where we also share that so that everyone is benefited, and at the same time the senior management also has some visibility on how the industry is shaping altogether. Is it specific to our bank problem, or is it industry-wide problem? Like, quick example that comes to my mind is when we were undergoing PIN certification for the first time, we had a heavy dependency on the OEMs to make certain modifications for the POS terminals that were there for the bank. So when we went to our regulator asking for an extension of timeline, we ensured that everyone in India, all the other banks to whom PCI PIN is applicable, are also having the same set of issues. So this could be only possible if the senior management is aware of it. Otherwise, we going at the ground level may not really help or collaborate at that point in time. So that's how we ensure that not just the seniors, but also the relevant stakeholders are kept updated and in a periodic basis. That's what we do.
Good.
I'm going to use my hat as an assessor and an advisor for various organizations. One of the things that we have as an approach is technical to establish that cybersecurity is baked into the entire organization's process. One of them is technical, the other would be a process-oriented approach. And in the technical aspects, we talk about some of the more prevalent concepts a lot of organizations will be using, which would be integrating security into the DevOps cycle, integrating security into your AI usage, or a piecemeal function that you take across different departments and then ensure that the security component comes into the picture. Specifically, when it comes to payments, there are a lot of FAQs which largely go unnoticed among various organizations. PCI literally has FAQs for multiple use cases and scenarios for the fact that a lot of these independent use cases and scenarios cannot be part of the bigger standard. So these FAQs vastly help, and this is something that we largely rely on in providing our advisory. Mm-hmm. The other component is the training and the awareness. So instead of having to pick one day as Information Security Training Day or PCI Training Day, it would be a lot more seamless if the functions were broken down. All the teams which are in the scope of the PCI DSS assessment can be specifically trained on their own participation in maintaining the compliance, in implementing controls and whatnot. So these are the top 2 points that we normally promulgate amongst our clientele, which has vastly helped a lot of organizations to be in touch with what the council is saying, the overall cybersecurity posture of the organization, and following a top-down approach, it gets deeper into their own departments and functions.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to switch directions a bit, leaning into the theme of collaboration. We all know that new players, new organizations are entering the payment space faster than I've ever seen before. It seems there's rarely a service, rarely an app that doesn't have some kind of payment integration today, as well as organizations entering the space that are designed solely around payments. As representatives of some of the more mature organizations and mature relationships with PCI, do you have any thoughts or ideas on ways to bring those new players into the PCI community to ensure that security is staying top of mind across our growing community? Edward, as a longtime representative of our Board of Advisors, any thoughts on this?
Okay, so I'll give you a very quick example, which is me. I started to work on PCI DSS since 2018, I think. At that time, I tried to, at the very beginning, I tried to find the key person and try to find my peers in the industry. That is very, very important. Mm-hmm. Normally, you have your responsibilities in your organization, right? But it's very difficult to find a peer to discuss some specific topics. So you can only find your peers in the industry. So try to find your peers and try to engage with the
Okay,
concept.
so sometimes you can't find those viewpoints within your own organization,
Yeah, so,
but you can with
yeah,
this
so
industry.
actually, so I became board advisor since 2021, and I joined my first communication 2020. So so join the community meeting has changed a lot of things.
Nice.
Yes, very-
Nikhil, any thoughts on how to maybe even reach customers of yours that may want to be part of this community?
Absolutely. Personally, I think there is no one single process or maybe a technology that can help because there are so many stakeholders at different levels with different expectations from the payment ecosystem. Like, for example, if I look at a customer, he wants a fast and secure payment, irrespective of how many hops the system, that particular transaction is going. On the other hand, a technology integrator might be worried about the security through each and every hop. He may not be relevant with the time by which it takes. Similarly, some other stakeholders might look at the overall compliance, right? So I think identifying each and every stakeholder within that entire payment ecosystem is important, number one. Number two, identifying their expectations. And number three is awareness, like Deepak just mentioned, that awareness at every level, because their expectations are different. I think only then we'll be able to truly work as one team for our customer experience. I think that's my submission.
No, I think that's a very valuable point. You've really hit on some of the key ideas that we'll be discussing today and tomorrow throughout the conference in this conversation, so I certainly appreciate that. It's about time for us to start wrapping up our conversation on stage, but I know we will continue to talk more over the next few days. In closing, I would like for each of you to provide your thoughts, advice on what you think members of the audience may do to remain engaged and how to make the most of their relationship with PCI. I think this is especially helpful for first-time attendees to the PCI community meeting here in Asia Pacific. Garen, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I thought just keep it simple, stay curious, stay vocal, right? So the more collaborative, the more vocal we are, the better it is for you and your organization and PCI payment community, right? And it is important to collaborate so that we can enhance the security and compliance standards. Yeah.
Thank you. Deepak.
So I think I have two very specific points. One of them is having a ear to the ground with respect to what the council is doing, being participative either as a PO or an APO. That's going to give direct insight into what the PCI standards largely talk about. Not just the DSS, but the entire slew of standards. There's a lot going on there, and unless there is a dedicated team that is going to participate, which is my second point, payment processors, companies which are heavy on payment security, rather than having one generic team which takes care of the entire information security initiative, because I know how the number of standards that one has to comply with or number of compliance programs that is there for any organizations. But payment security needs its own dedicated team so that this information can transpire with a lot of advantage for organizations in the payment space.
Great. Edward?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's back to a few years, I think I call for add more seats for Asia. Thank you very much for listening, my voice. And now I'm raising up another question. Gina just said that we can ask very tough questions, right? So I think it's recently I keep calling, speak out about another questions. I think it's for most of the middle-sized and small-sized companies to engage with the PCI DSS as kind of very difficult and costly. So I think I will suggest everyone here. I think try to find your board advisor near you and try to talk with them and they will definitely bring your voice to the council.
That's
I think
really
that
good
is my
advice.
suggestion for them.
Really good advice.
Yeah.
Nikhil, I'll let you close us out.
Yeah, I'll take one quick minute. So when Gina said about relationship, any relationship with two ways, right? So while participants or especially the first timers can definitely look up to a lot of webinars, sessions, FAQs, supplement documents, information templates. A lot of information is available on the website, as well as these programs like Gear and REB and everything. But definitely, on the other hand, council also needs to reach out to them, which I think you're doing brilliantly, like the team said over here. So it is give and take. So it's not just one-way traffic kind of a thing. So we want to ensure that while, like Edward said, stay curious, stay hungry, and at the same time, if council can also make an attempt to increase these kind of frequency of these kind of meetings, I think that can help to collaborate more. I think that's
No, that's fantastic advice. Thank you all. I would like to personally thank Garen, Deepak, Nikhil, and Edward for this discussion. So I'm going to have them exit the stage now and have all of you thank them as well.